We'll go ahead and get started. So good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us for our family support series. My name is Kayla Tingley, and my pronouns are she, her, and I am the graduate assistant for family programs, and I'll be moderating tonight's event. So, Mackenzie, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, good evening, everybody. We're so happy to have you here tonight. My name is Mackenzie Nelson. I use she, her pronouns, and I am the Assistant Director of Family Programs in the Office of New Student Family Programs. Welcome.
Good evening, families and supporters. My name is Camille Clark. My pronouns are she, her, and hers, and I am the Associate Director of Family Programs.
Hooray. So tonight I'm joined by a member of the Global Education Office. They're here to discuss what their office does and how your student can get involved in the study abroad program. So they'll answer pre-written questions as well as any questions you may have. While our panelist is speaking, please feel free to use the Q&A button, not the chat button, at the bottom of your screen to ask a question. The chat button will be used to show you all what questions we're asking and things like that. We also have live transcripts and closed captioning for those who may need it, and this session will be recorded and posted to our website and YouTube channel. So let's get started. Would you introduce yourself, your pronouns, and what you do here at Mason?
Absolutely. So my name is Achim Loch, and I work for the Global Education Office. My title is actually Assistant Director for Strategic Marketing and Outreach, so that's a long one. What that means is I talk to students about study abroad options at Mason, also in the wider context, global engagement and partnerships that we have. And I also have about 5 peer advisors, so students who have gone abroad, and then work for our office advising students on how to do that themselves, and those report to me as well. Yeah, so that's about a quick introduction of what we do. Good. I guess I can get started then. Tonight, I actually have something I want to share in the chat room. So if you want to reach out to me, you will see what my name is and how you write it, that I use he, him pronouns. My email address is aloch@gmail.edu. Loch is like the Scottish Loch, like Loch Ness. But I'm actually German originally, so I have dual citizenship. I'm German American. But if you wonder how to pronounce it, it is a very guttural sound that goes back in your throat, of course. And our website is studyabroad.gmu.edu. It looks a bit like this one here, and I'm going to guide you through a few things for that. And if you want to reach out just in general, it's goabroad@gmu.edu, and that's written everywhere on this slide. I hope you can all see that. So we have our URL on the bottom, the phone number, which is 2154. The first 6 digits are always the same at Mason, and then goabroad@gmu.edu. Okay, so let's just talk for a little bit with an introduction. This is really only a few slides, so it's very brief about what study abroad is. First of all, what is it? So trying to answer, I sometimes have this at events, that we have this table cover that says study abroad on it, and then a few programs that we do, and some really are wondering, what actually is that you do. So here are some bullet points to describe that in a way. It is an educational program. We also build our own courses. So in many times you have a course at Mason, but we actually took in place in another country. So you may have a course code, let's say, for example, Government 480. Yeah, so there would be a GOVT as a course, for example, can take abroad. And I have some photos here. You can see that if you look on the top row all the way to the right, you see what looks like police cars, and it's BMW. It is not in Germany, and it's not in Bavaria. When you look at the colors and the license plates, you can actually see that this is Great Britain. And this is a program that specifically goes to Britain, Scotland, and England to see how the police there do their work. And that's part of a criminal justice program for the university here. We also have our own department, which then is called Criminology, Law, and Society. And this course here has the fancy title, Hooligans and Homicide, Law Enforcement in the United Kingdom. And this would be a summer course that gives you 6 credits. So it's like specifically designed for that. So that's one thing what study abroad can be. Another bullet point here is that you live or work abroad. Traditionally, it would be a semester. That's what I did many years ago. I actually went abroad for an entire year. I also did a study field trip for 2 weeks, which and nowadays, and by nowadays I mean the last 15 years or so, would also be considered study abroad. So we do it from 2 weeks, maybe 10 days for spring break, to like a summer, a semester, to an entire year. So it can be many different things. And then you can study at a foreign institution, or as in the example you've seen here for the UK, it can also be in a way a more cultural experience, or more really coursework where you travel between different places. Another example would be if you look all the way in the bottom, you can see someone waving a Japanese flag. That was actually a health program going to Japan and study ageism. You may know that Japan and Korea have very low birth rates, and the pyramid that you had in the 60s has been subverted in a way that's like you have a huge swath of the population that's actually aging, and what effect does that have on the development of that? So I digress a little bit, but here we go. All of these programs are 4 credit. Some short ones would be 3, some are usually 6, and then a full semester is a 12 to 15 credit load. When we also talk about what is study abroad, students would say they change somehow when they come back. What that means is they have somehow a transformative experience, and this is usually the word we use in the field of global education, international education, study abroad. There are many different ways to describe that. Another one is like global engagement or outbound mobility. So depending on which place in the world you go, you will have different terminology to describe that you have a global experience through your home university that is part of your curriculum. So one big difference though is when you go abroad and you do not do a short-term take a course, you would go to partner school, for example, like study here at a foreign institution and take credits from there. There's a different concept, what does affect your GPA and what does not. I'm not going to go into too much detail. There's just many different options. But one thing right away I want to say is you never pay twice. So if someone decides to do a summer school for 6 credits instead of doing a summer school here, of course they would not pay extra tuition for that. The same is if you go abroad for a semester, you pay for that semester no matter where you go. And so let's say you're a Virginia student and we do something called an exchange. Meaning you go to a school, you still pay tuition then to Mason, and if you're an in-state tuition payer, that means you still pay in-state tuition. Now, if you're an out-of-state tuition payer, so a family from out-of-state, and you pay out-of-state tuition, we also have options for you that save you on average, I would say $7,000 to $10,000, which is why we have students coming from out-of-state doing semesters programs specifically, because this is one way of saving money. Mason Korea is one example for that, because for our out-of-state students who want to go to our satellite campus in Korea, the flat out-of-state tuition fee there is $10,000, which is $7,100 something less than what you would have for out-of-state tuition on the Mason campus. So there's lots of options. I mean, you can see here a number on this next slide. We do have about 200 programs that we administer every year. Some are short-term, some repeat all the time, some might be more unique. There is one that's specifically for 300-400 level students that occurred twice in the last 3 years, and that studied malaria and research in Equatorial Guinea, a tiny, small country in Africa. So we go to about 60 countries where we have partnerships. Some countries you cannot actually travel to unless you do a sort of education program like you see in this photo here. That was actually a program that went to Cuba. So it was one of 2 programs that goes to Cuba. The one not pictured here did the political system, trade relationships, but this year was more culture focused. It was called Cuba Dance. And so you can see there, they did a lot of dance lessons. They engaged a lot with local culture. And you may also see there's a student right in front of them, doing this pose here on the bottom. Her name is Fiona, and she actually did, of those bullet points you see on the left, 1 experience each. So it's like she did 4 study abroad experiences. And she's also from out of state, so from Colorado, out of state tuition fair. So she did a program with Mason faculty, which you see here was a 2-week program, a winter break. She did a partner school program, meaning she studied 1 semester at a different school, and she decided to go to Australia for that one, which is in Perth. Which, by the way, fun fact, if you're going to be really far away, Perth is the furthest away from Washington, D.C. that you can get. Yeah, it's a 28-hour flight, fast way. So, and then global internship, she decided to also do an internship. She loved Spanish-speaking countries and decided to go to Argentina for a semester. But before she all started that, she was actually a freshman and participated in our unique freshman year program, which is a gateway where she went to Ecuador. So she's soon graduating, and she was able to save some money with these by not always paying out-of-state tuition in 3 semesters. So that's can be really good. It also requires some planning, of course. Gateway, I'm not spending too much time on that because it's really for those who come in the fall semester as freshmen, and we go to, we offer 10, but right now we only go to 7 because some locations, there's just no demand for it. I actually teach one of those, and I'm going to be leaving in about 10 days because I teach a segment for Mason Korea. And that's also our largest segment. We have 2 classes going there, so there's about 35, 40, I'm not sure what the current numbers because there's another course. So 40 students going to Korea, and we don't spend the entire semester with them there. We just prepare them for a semester, and then we'll just be on location for 2 weeks just to get them settled. It's because 18 years old can be quite a transition, so it's a little bit different than those who go abroad in their sophomore, junior years, where students usually tend to be more mature and they can handle aspects of a different scholarly setting, different studies at a university. Then here are some numbers. I mentioned it before, you know, the countries you go to. Partners in this case means not just university partners that we have an exchange with, but also could be a language school. For example, in Jordan, we work with a language school for Arabic in the Middle East for that. Or we have internship providers that we work with to place students in different countries and cities. For example, there's an organization called CRCC Asia. So a lot of our internships in Japan, Korea, I think also Thailand are actually going through that provider who helps us find employers in these places. And that's what I mean by internships here. When you see the 30, it's usually about 28 to 29. Those are the locations, cities you can go to. Yeah, 10 years ago, everyone would go to London. Right now, you know, top ones are in Asia, also Italy, or doing a nursing program in Prague, for example. So there's really lots of options. And when you apply for a program, I would always say, like, students should apply for scholarships. Yeah, we have money available ourselves, and we would give 2 scholarships for sure if you go through the process. So that's the max you can actually get through us. Some are like $1,000, others usually between $500 to $1,000. And then there are some competitive ones that are like several $1,000s. As for our deadlines, currently we're doing summer, so we're talking summer today a little bit more, and that is March 1st. And then for winter break, spring, it's usually 6 months before a program actually goes abroad, and that is when the deadline expires. And it used to be the 10th, but now starting this last year, 2024, is always March 1st, October 1st, and November 1st for spring break. Talked about scholarships a little bit because the way programs are, it depends on type, length, location. Also, cost of living can play a role. The reason why also where we have a satellite campus in Korea is like it's a lot cheaper to live there. And if you look at housing on campus in Fairfax, which on average is about $4,800, you can get a single room for $1,600 for an entire semester in Mason, Korea. And then even for going out and eating, it's not as expensive as Northern Virginia. Financial aid can be used. We recommend talking to a counselor for that. And then for in-state, out-of-state, it makes a difference to go on a semester program because in-state is just because the way we have what is called a memorandum of understanding with a school, an MOU, what we sign with them. So the exchange means our students pay tuition to us, but not to the other school. Out-of-state means they pay tuition to the other school, and that is usually a lower for out-of-state tuition payers. And then housing usually depends where you go. Also, meal plans is not a thing in many countries. It's more of like an American and sometimes in Asian countries, but not so much. So it's also something we tend to tell students. And just, if you want to find out more, we have our website with different options. And what I want to show you before I leave this one here is, this is our website. And if you want to know about programs for summer, you would just click on the airplane and then it takes you to find programs, and there are several options. You can click on term, summer, and boom, you have all the summer programs available here. There is some terminology here, like, MasonNet means it's a course that we built. Internship's clear, we place you in internship. And if you scroll further down, you may even find a summer school somewhere there, which is when another university offers a summer school for international students, and you can go there as well. That usually means as a George Mason student, you could be the only one participating in that program in that place. Yeah, and that's about it. You can see this here was the last slide if you would like to follow us. Mason Study Abroad is the handle we use on Instagram. And I think now I talked for way too long, so we can open the floor to some questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your presentation. So the first question is a bit of a long one, but so what courses are available to take? What are the most common courses that students take abroad, etc.?
That's interesting. So courses. As I mentioned before, when we built some of these programs, they have certain credits attached to them. So let's look at the Summer for French in Paris. This is run by Raluca. I forgot her last name, but she's done this before. It looks my internet is a bit slow. There you go. So for this one, I go to academics. You can see it's all French courses. So in this case, depending on placement, you would take one of these French courses. If we go to a subject-oriented one, let's take a look at Cyprus. This is the geopolitics one. This is more specific. It's also shorter, and you can see this is a graduate course that gives you 700, the 702 course for that one. So it is really specialized and not really for everyone. And then when we look at, where was I? Internships. Yeah, let's take a look at the internships here in Ecuador. When you click on academics here, it gives you like INTS 390 as like a main one or conflict analysis. So sometimes it's also a set default course. So what it means is like we assign this, but it could be any other course that you'd like to do. And here are some examples listed, what students have done in the past. This paragraph here actually talks about that, because we have career fields that we offer in certain places. Like when I click on this one, it's a large chart. It's a bit hard to read, but when you print this out, you can say if you want to do fashion design, for example, everywhere you see a dot, you can do fashion design. So you can do Italy, Florence, fashion design. So maybe you can get credit in a communication field, for example. So that's one. The other one for courses, I want to say, if you go to a partner school and you want to see what students have done in the past, we also have something in the Find Programs section. It's called the Transfer Credit Database. So if we don't build the course and we cannot tell you what the Mason number is, you want to see like what do other countries do? And we keep track of all these courses electronically, so you don't have to go through like papers a lot. And this one currently has 6,602 courses listed. That does not mean they always take place, because like at Mason that once had an anthropology course on zombies, it could be to go to another country that has a very specific course. So let's say, for example, you want to do, let's say, economics. Yeah, let's just do econ. Where can you do that? And we just go for that. Okay, so we have here international economy in Argentina, and they have a course number there. You can even go to a specific university and see like what I can do there. So let's say you want to go to Dublin. Do they offer econ courses there? Is that something that students have done? And it's reading a bit, going through all of that. But you can see here, okay, 5 courses have been taken in the past. If it means 3 .. it means there's no real equivalent, but it is about 300 level course. So I recommend talk to one of our advisors, and they can actually nail it down and try to find the perfect location for you.
Awesome, thank you. Our next question is, what should my student know before applying for a study abroad experience, and how should they best prepare once they are sure that they're going?
One thing I would make sure is first, do you meet the eligibility requirements for that? There's also GPA requirements. I recommend doing the step-by-step, which like if you read from here, it's like a journey and you can click your way through it, goes all the way to the end. That explains how programs actually work. Peer advisors are students, as I said, that have done this before. These are still from last semester. I just got the pictures today from the current ones. So only Caleb is currently returning, and then I have 4 new ones. So everyone else has graduated. So that would be a first place. Then eligibility usually means 2.25 to 3.5. That's usually the GPA you would need. For faculty, that's usually a bit lower. Oxford University, you would have to have 3.3 to 3.5 if you want to do a summer school a semester there. Some also require certain courses in advance. I mean, if you do like the French language one, you probably don't need anything to do that. You just have a placement and you go and do it. But if you want to do a geology course in Italy, they require like a 300 level course for understanding of geological features, so you would understand what this course actually is about. And for a semester, we usually recommend doing that like sophomore, junior year, when you have like 30 to 45 credits under your belt, so you can also succeed when you go abroad. Yeah, because you have to have at least a C or a B minus for a semester to actually transfer it back. And if you have only 6 credits coming back, you basically lost another 6 credits and you're not getting them back. Yeah, so we'll make sure that you succeed as well. Because big myth, study abroad is not a vacation. There's still coursework to do. Even though students really enjoy their time there, you still have to complete coursework.
Next question, how does housing work while studying abroad?
That also depends where you go. So let's say you do a winter break program where they travel to different places. Switzerland would be a good example, because this last trip they went to the United Nations and to the European Parliament in Strasbourg. So they had student dorms with our partner university in Fribourg. So they were set there. On another program that goes to like, German post-war history, they actually stay in hotels because they travel to different cities. We also once had a program in Belize that was focused on marine biology, where they stayed in hotels. And for a few nights, when they went to like an island, they actually had to stay in tents for a few nights, where they went diving to like explore marine life, which was part of the course. If you do a semester, in a lot of places you have a dorm. Like Mason Korea has the option of a dorm. If you go later in your semester, you may even say, hey, I don't want a dorm. I can also try to find my own living arrangements. And there are some contacts we can help you with there as well, especially since we have a satellite campus. Some places you can choose. Others, like Spain, for example, there's a program where you stay with host families so you can learn the language. Yeah, it's usually part of what we built. So I would recommend when you find a program, which if you go to this page here and do find programs, let's just do summer again, and I click on something, let's say Austria software engineering, it would actually tell you in the itinerary what happens and where you can expect to stay. So we're going to be a hotel. Yeah. But we also have the contact information listed there. So in this case, Ali is the program administrator. She would know more about what the program actually looks like. But other than that, the page will give you a lot of information.
Cool. So when students are abroad, how are they able to pay for things? Like, does their dollar work? Does their card work, etc.?
So we have a mandatory pre-departure orientation, which is before students go abroad, it's usually at the end of the semester. You have to do a health and safety briefing, but also talks about practicalities and how to use money, of course. when you have a credit card, oftentimes you can actually use it abroad to withdraw money from your account. You just have to check, your card, what it is, if it's like Visa, MasterCard, or there's also the Plus and Master one. Because a debit card should be used to withdraw money. If you do this with a credit card, there's usually a $50 limit, and we do not recommend that. So a debit card is usually a lot cheaper, and it allows you to withdraw money from your account. Of course, worldwide there's like these limits between $1,000 and $5,000 a day. The other thing is, if you stay longer in a country, you may be able to have an account at the bank in the host country. However, short-term ones, if you just go for a semester, lots of countries will not allow you to open an account unless you have like a resident card. And by the time you get that, you've already spent mostly 2 months already in the country. So I would say the best thing we recommend is have your own account, or you can use the debit card to take money out. Have some cash when you arrive in the country in case you don't find an ATM. This could usually be, we say, $150 to $300 in the local currency. And the other thing is, you have to tell your bank that you're actually abroad, so the bank knows there is no fraud. Yeah, and do this before you go. And if you use a credit card, also do a travel alert with that before you go. And in terms of costs, depending on where you go, many countries use cards, but some are still have some cash at hand. Japan is technologically advanced, but they still have a lot of money with cash in hand, or coins that you use for yen if you want to order food and things like that. So that's our recommendation. And yeah.
So we had a question about kind of medical care when students are abroad. How can families help from afar, and just general safety concerns?
Right, so yeah, for general safety, we do have that pre-departure orientation that everyone should attend, must attend. Before they go to that, we also have a virtual segment, which we now call the Global Readiness Course. Because in the past, we had our online system that had like 18 different sections for like health and safety and health things in general. And we found out, students sometimes struggle to the more there is, we have to click all through them. So we condensed it into one virtual training that you do for like 30 minutes. That's about how long it takes. You get a certificate, upload it, and then we mark it as done, which tells you what to expect in your location. If we have a specific program, let's say you just saw software engineering, we would have a breakout session telling you about what to expect and what not to expect. The other thing is prescription medicine. So this is something we cover a lot during our pre-departure orientation, and that is not every country allows certain prescription medicine. A good example would be Adderall is illegal in many countries. In Japan, for example, you would get arrested. No matter if you didn't know it or so, you cannot say it. If you bring something like that in the country, you're doing something illegal and they could arrest you. So when that happens and a student has prescription medicine like that, we do recommend talking to your primary care physician just to say what are other options, because you can look at the CDC website, if that still exists in current diplomatic reasons, but that usually gives you the information that you would need to know if there are any alternatives. Korea, I will mention it as an example. Currently, our students were encouraged to bring even Tylenol for at least 3 months, along with their prescription medicine, because they've had a medical strike going on for about 11 months now. It's not impossible. It can be more difficult to actually get a doctor's appointment or see a specialist in country. Yeah, there are challenges that sometimes we have to work with. Again, this is more of an exception. It's not a rule, but a year, it's quite long. It's also why you had the government overthrow, or the martial law declaration by that South Korean president trying to break this strike.
Cool. So in terms of whether a student's like a junior or senior, how late is too late to study abroad?
I would not do it during the last semester. It's not impossible, but we do not recommend it or encourage it. So you should probably do, last option would be maybe spring break in your last semester. It's still doable, of course, or winter break in your last semester. If you graduate in May. If you graduate during the winter, then it would be a summer program, would be the last option. The reason why a semester can be iffy is the university needs to send us a transcript, and that one is still a hard copy and snail mail. And if there's any delay or so, or if you go to place, especially in the spring, where the dates don't line up with the US, then you may not have everything needed by the time you intend to walk and graduate.
Thank you. So are students allowed to do any independent travel before or after their session?
Yes, they can do that. The programs is usually, let me just go to a different page here as well. You have to be at the start of the program when that one starts in country, because we also don't offer flights. Would be hard to do for like the 1,100 students that we're currently having abroad. And then after that, usually there's a certain period. It depends, what program it is. Let's say if you do a summer program, you would usually come into the country on a tourist visa. And in general, you have 90 days. That's like the global average. So if your program is, say, 6 weeks, you would still have 6 weeks to travel around after the program. And if you do 2 weeks before, then you have 4 weeks left just to stay within those 90 days. And some students really take advantage of that, and they do travel a lot. So yeah, that can be done. And you can also arrive before the program starts. I had one student from Mason Korea last year. She had a contact for her host family from her high school days, so she arrived 3 weeks early. And I told her, yeah, but it also means if you have to go to the visa before Christmas to actually get your student visa approved, because you need it 30 days before you get into the country. So there's always other things in timeline. We can work with that. Another thing I want to mention, if they want to do something completely different that we do not have, the last thing here, well, second to last now, is an external study abroad program. So if students cannot find anything that we offer, we can work with them to take them to a location that they really want to go to. Yeah. For example, if they really want to study abroad in Namibia, we don't have a program there. We could try to find something and work with them.
That's really cool. I like that option a lot. So that kind of, you talked a little bit about this in your last answer, but how does the visa process work?
That also depends on countries. So in general, there's one slide in the presentation that actually answers that question. So if I go step by step on peer advising, I have a longer self-guided version here. And I'm going to open this in the browser. Let me just go to this slide here. So this talks about different programs, and you can see here visa in this area here. So for faculty-led programs, it would be mostly a tourist visa. Student visa usually means when you're longer than the 90 days that I just mentioned. And that's also what we tell students when they do a summer program, which is less than 90 days. And even if they study, or let's say the geology, or there's another one actually, an archaeology program, and they would work somewhere, we say don't tell the customs officer that you're working because you're entering on tourist visa. You do some work, but for the bureaucratic formalities that we have here, you are a tourist, because essentially that is your status when you enter the country. If you do a semester, it's more than 90 days usually, because you would have the 14 to 15 weeks of study. So that means applying for a student visa. And depending on where you go, this is not cheap. For example, Morocco has a student visa that's about 20-30 bucks for the entire semester. If you go to Australia, which is sought after location, they charge $600 for a student visa on top of everything. And it's not covered in our program fee actually. And then internships, summer is usually tourist visa. And again, if you do an internship, we tell people, you are a tourist and you're going on a tourist visa. Yeah, it's the same when I go take the Gateway students. Korea has several segments for that. There's a tourist business, and then there's like visa stays. I always check tourists because even if I work for our satellite campus, I'm only there for 2 weeks. And if I were to say business or work, the immigration officer would say like, maybe you should not enter. Yeah. But we do not advise student visa in general. We do have resources where we can tell students where to go to. And the benefit of really being in the DMV is a lot of consular services for different embassies are just available within a short metro ride.
Thank you. So how do students receive mail? I'm sure it depends on where they are, but how accessible is it for families to send things to their students?
Let's say if you have a dorm, you probably get a dorm address, and that would, I would say, apply to semester programs because winter is really too short. I mean, 2 weeks. Even summer programs, when it's like 4 weeks, is why you could just take it with you. But we have students sending it to a family member sending it for a semester one. Maybe I use Mason Korea as an example here because it's a good example. Students would then list the name of the dorm and where to deliver it from, and they would have a mail room there as well. So it's very similar to what you expect here. In Europe, they also have dorms you could send it to. In Ireland, we have a freshman program with the host family. So in that case, it would be the host family, and you would then provide that address. And students can tell you once they know their placement and once you know the address, and they can say, hey, can you send me that? One thing to consider, though, if we're talking medicine, do not send any medication because that is illegal in almost all countries. And it will end up in customs. So you can usually get what you need in country. It might be something different. Or pharmacies may have an extra layer where you have to ask for something. Also, what you can get over the counter in the US may be prescription medicine in other countries.
All right, thank you. So we've got a couple of Q&A questions in the chat. So in terms of students doing internships, what is the typical dress code? Do they need suits or casual, or what type of clothes should they bring for those?
Very good question. We do have an internship team that can be more specific about what that means. I would say it's business casual and up, meaning business casual then becomes more formal, depending on what kind of internship you do. I mean, if you have a placement in the UK, work for Parliament there, it's probably more formal. If you work for like a startup in Curitiba, Brazil, maybe not. Also depends on the weather for that. But yeah, it's more professional than just showing up in like your sweatshirts. That can also apply to programs. Like I mentioned the Switzerland program earlier, everyone had to pack at least a suit of sorts because when they went to the NATO in Switzerland, they had to be formal for that event.
Thank you. Could you talk a little bit about how the internships translate to actual credits?
Yeah, so let me go to this page here. When I go to programs, you have a special internship page. There is a default credit for internships. If you want to know more how that works, you can go to How to Intern Abroad, and there is videos that our previous students have done, and that guides you through the entire thing. And if you click on the GU internship playlist, it has the entire thing. So you go from beginning to end, and they're not very long. They're like 2 minutes or so each. There's also an FAQ section that tells you more about that. And as I said, there's a default credit, but the internship team can walk you through the process on what to do to get like a specific credit that you want. As I saw that earlier with the programs, you know, that can really vary on your major, what you need and what you would like to get. And you would work with the academic advisor to make sure that would be approved for that. And also for internships, it's mandatory to have an advising session with one of our advisors. And there's 2 right now, which is Stas Michkov and Sarah Gallo. Sarah today associated at least 3 advising appointments. So they're very busy during this time.
Thank you. So how do you find out what medications are allowed in a country, or is that something that they have to do independent research on?
We have some resources available. So once you apply, which, you know, when you go to your login button, you can log in with your Mason NetID. I'm just going to demonstrate a little bit. Hope it doesn't ask me for my phone right now. And then for applications, I do have the option of like seeing what's in there. There's a lot of information right here. I do have one account, I believe, applicant. So this is what it looked for me or so. And I have done 6 of 10 things. I'm wondering if it's loading right now. So it has this country information that you see here. So if you click on the CDC or the Department of State page for those countries, the reason why Korea is shown because I'm taking a group there, so that's why I have my own account for that. But if you apply to a program for a certain country, then your country would show up there, and it has the relevant links. It's just how the database is set up in the back. And CDC is usually recommended because when you click on that, it has a health packing list further down. So just read through that, and that gives you the information, because there's changing information. So we only link to that and say, like, this is, have to educate yourself about that. If we have student advisors available that went to a country that can tell you about it, might be for the better. For internships, for example, I had someone who did an internship in India. So that person was really able to say, like, what is allowed and what's not allowed.
So we've got a couple of questions about a student going to Prague. So is it says my daughter's going to Prague for 4 weeks. Is that a full summer tuition, or is it less because it's only 4 weeks?
There's usually a program fee for that. So since it's 4 weeks, it's probably 6 credits. So you pay the tuition for 6 credits. We can also look that up on this page here. So if we go to Prague, we have the internship here. And if it's live, you can have a contact or cost sheet at the very end. So study abroad tuition. So you can see here she's an undergraduate for 6 credits. You see it's 3,500, and then there's a global education fee for that. Okay, okay. Looks like undergraduate is 3 credits for this one for that. Yeah, you can check it out. I mean, whatever applies to the student. That's why there's mandatory advising, because they can help you with that. You can also change airfare here and so on to see what it is. But in general, it's not the full semester for summer, because it's only half the credits, because you only get 6. And some have only 3 options. It's usually for graduate, though.
Thank you. Will there be someone at the airport in Prague to meet her when she lands? And what is the housing situation? And do all Mason students stay together?
That is a very program-specific question. Since I do more general ones, I would say you would have to check for that on the page. And if we go to Prague, which is this one here, I think it's World Endeavors. Yes, it's World Endeavors that we work with. We do have a study abroad fair next week on the 12th, unless there is a snowstorm. When World Endeavors is actually coming to campus of the fair, so they will be on campus in the Johnson Center during that time. Might be a good chance for that student to come and to get those questions answered. It depends on the program. Some do have pickup service, I know that. For housing here, I wouldn't really know. I would have to look that up myself, what that is like. So that's unfortunately all I can say of now. Yeah. In many cases for internships, there is a bit more support depending on the provider and the person we work with. But it's so diverse with all these different locations and providers and companies that I'm not very well versed in all the details.
Okay, thank you. One of our last questions is, do students get to the location of the abroad school on their own, or is there any group travel from the airport or the school?
Usually it's on their own, because the program starts at a specific time and students are expected to arrive at that time. And as I said, you know, with the freedom to travel, they could be there earlier if they want. There are some programs where it's, I would say, students who go in a program have these sessions where they have their own flight information that they exchange, so they may actually meet at a place or share accommodation for a night. The example I can give is there was a program in Berlin once, and Berlin, Germany, they don't do a lot of hand-holding. So we had to figure out, okay, students land at this airport, and then we look at the public transportation or the taxi you can use to get to that place. For our own campus in Korea, we actually found out that housing is a separate entity, because there's other universities on that global campus. And they have their work hours from 9 to 10, no, 9 to 12, and then again from 2 to 5. And if you do not arrive in those windows, you cannot move into the dorm, which means when an international flight arrives at 2 p.m., and you go through immigration and things like that, you still have to take a taxi to get over there by yourself. And you may not be able to check in because it might be 5 o'clock when you arrive. So we recommend having a hotel for one night. We did have a pilot project where we actually booked coaches and picked them up. But the thing is, like, not everyone flies out from the same location. We do have out-of-state students, so when they come home or so, why would they go back to DC when they live in Texas? They could take a flight from Texas to the location. So they may not be in the same flight. And so that's really hard to coordinate all of that. So it's why the industry standard is really, you go to the country, maybe you find a cheaper flight, and from there, it depends on what program it is. There might be more support than others, but usually you have to find your way to the location. In Cambodia, it's a little bit different, because we have an organized travel there, and they have sessions where they say, like, here you can stay at the night, but this is where the program departs to go into the country.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So families, just encourage your students to attend their advising sessions if they're looking to study abroad. And we have their contact information in the chat, so please feel free to take a screenshot of that as well. All right. Questions in the chat? All right. Well, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it. And have a good evening, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.